Hey guys, my name's Jake O'Donnell. I'm a men's fitness and fashion photographer based in Melbourne, Australia. So I've spent the past couple of years building up my work on Instagram and other social media as a bit of a platform to expose myself and get my practice out there where I can find some new clients and get a bit of feedback. But since Instagram started the live video feature, and I got really good feedback from that about taking people sort of into the behind the scenes work that I do, live streaming in the studio space, meeting the models and that kind of thing, I thought it might be a good idea to start a channel here on YouTube where I'll be able to do a little bit more of that, give you a bit more insight into how I work and all that sort of thing. So I don't yet really know how the channel is going to go. I think I might do a little bit of maybe tutorials in terms of some techniques that I do with shooting or editing potentially, maybe some Q&As with me and models where I might be able to vlog on shoots, introduce you to some of the people I work with, some of the influencers and models who've become close friends of mine, let you get to know them a little bit more closely too, and how we interact and the sort of things we look at when we're coming up with concepts, building up shoots, reviewing the footage afterwards and stuff. But yeah, I'll see how it goes. If you have any suggestions for me in terms of what content you'd like to see, what you'd like to know about me, how I work, or anything in terms of photography, lenses, editing, etc., let me know in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Instagram because I'm always checking there. So for today I thought, like, just as a little bit, I'd just do a little bit of an introduction about myself as a photographer, how I got into it, and also I thought one of the main things I get asked via direct message on Instagram or whenever I'm talking to somebody who's trying to get into things or is looking to build up their own Instagram is what camera and lenses I use. So I have a bunch of my equipment here today where I thought I might show you each thing, talk a little bit about why I purchased that particular lens or camera, what I use it for, its particular advantages for my work, to give you a little bit of an insight into what I'm thinking about when I choose my equipment, and then maybe you can take that information to apply it to your own decision making if you're looking at getting into photography or perhaps building up your social media too and wanting to use some equipment to produce a higher caliber of content for that. So I first got into photography back in it would have been 2012, 2013 when I was around 16. I'm 21 now. And that was as part of an art folio in high school. So I was working in studio arts doing a concept around the idea of humanity as a species. So I was doing a lot of work that involved the human body, creating conceptual pieces where it would be manipulated photo collage or artworks using the human body or aspects of the human body. And I decided to attack that from a male perspective, partly because we already got brought in female life models to draw, and also because I just thought as a man I can provide a more authentic and legitimate perspective on what I was doing from that side of things. So that's how I first started getting into photography as a medium, and it really took off from there in terms of exploring lighting and posing and ways to really flatter the male physique, because that was useful to the work then, and it helped me build up the knowledge base for what I do now. And so that then went on to the point where I would be using friends and other people from my school. The school I went to was a fairly large private school that had a relatively extensive sporting program. So there was a lot of really fit guys around that were able to help me with starting out, which is cool. I was very lucky. Most people don't have access to model caliber people when they're making their first forays into photography, but luckily I did. So as some of you may have guessed or already seen, I'm a Nikon shooter. But before I talk about the actual lenses themselves, I wanted to talk about something that's absolutely indispensable for me when I go out shooting, and that's my case here. It's not a Pelican case, although they are like the standard brand for the hardware cases like this. But I never used to have one, and I actually dropped a lens and smashed it. So after that, my dad went and got me this one from Bunnings. He said it was like $50, but it's the best $50 I ever spent. Because one time I was down in Blairgowrie doing a beach shoot with Matt Sakuzo, who is this guy here. You can find him on my Instagram. And we were doing a swimwear shoot in a rock arch, and a wave came through that space, funneled by the tightness of the rock knocked us over and sent this with all my equipment into it right out into the ocean, where some teenagers were sort of cliff diving into a rock pool. And so they jumped down, swam it back for me, and I was like, oh no, everything's going to be ruined, all my gear. But I opened it up and it was completely dry and intact, so highly recommend if you want to protect your gear, because it's worth a lot of money. So the camera I'm filming on now is my old camera. That's a Nikon D7200. The camera I use at the moment is a Nikon D810. I think I'll correct myself if I'm wrong in a caption or something, but I'm pretty sure it's 38 megapixel, full frame. It's fantastic. It's the quality level that I've noticed in elevation from going from that to this has been fantastic. Obviously it's a little bit pricey, but I think photography is very much one of those things where there's no level playing field. You sort of get what you pay for in terms of the quality of the gear. So yeah, it's an investment. The first lens I bought, I'll just change the mode so that the dust doesn't get in, is that one just there. This is a Nikon 85mm 1.8G. This is like a short telephoto lens, but the beauty of it really is in that wide aperture there, the f1.8, because I typically like to shoot wide open because I'm a really big fan of the nice soft blurry backgrounds so that the relative sharpness of the model makes them pop as the subject in the photo. This particular lens though, I don't know if it was just because on the camera that I had, which was an APS-C sensor, so it had a relatively greater depth of field at the same aperture compared to the full frame camera. I found that this sort of struggled to get the model crisp if I was shooting a full body shot wide open, but then again that's just because the area of focus is so small that the model potentially would move out of that space whilst shooting and therefore would have a little bit of haze. But it's a fantastic lens. I used it for absolutely everything before I increased my arsenal of lenses. Great for headshots actually. This particular focal length is awesome for flattering the features. Like obviously there's going to be no distortion at 85mm, but it's still not so long as that the compression is very aggressive. You can get a nice sense of depth around the figure with this, so this is a great lens, although I don't really use it too much since purchasing this one. This is my 70 to 200 f2.8. This is probably my favourite lens, although I say that tentatively because each of them performs obviously a different function, but it's very much the bread and butter lens. Like it's the lens that's most versatile and applicable to most jobs, and you know, get the most paying clients requesting work, where this lens would probably be the go-to. The best thing about it is that it has that fixed aperture at the variable focal length, so you can you really notice that on like inferior zoom lenses you get a little bit of a loss in maybe sharpness or color rendering because of all the glass elements that the light has to pass through. But this is a fantastic piece of glass. I've always loved the results I get from it, and as you can see in some shots I'll put up, you get beautifully shallow depths of field at the longer focal lengths at f2.8. Always stunning results. It comes with a range of options here that allow you to adjust the lens's capacity for vibration reduction when you're shooting, because obviously it's quite heavy, so that allows you to prepare it to be more stable in active shooting situations. This would be the only lens that I use when I do studio shoots, because then background compression isn't so much of an issue. You can just work completely on the perspective relative to the model. So yeah, this is what I use most of the time. It's a really nifty piece of equipment, and I highly recommend getting one, because you can actually, if you can't afford to buy them flat out in a lump sum, you can actually get them in payouts like per month from places like Ted's or JB Hi-Fi, which is where I got this from. So yeah, that's really fantastic. But this lens here, I've probably started using a little bit more This is my 35mm f1.8. I would really like to get a 1.4 at some point, but the 1.8 does the trick for now, because typically I'm not trying to remove the background so much when I use this lens, and that's because I'm typically using it on location when I've gone to the effort of location scouting for a space that looks really cool. And so if you use a telephoto lens like this, the compression you get with your angle of view is going to eliminate so much of the background that there wasn't really any point searching for one anyway. So this is my go-to when I'm out on location looking for something cool, whether I'm in like abandoned warehouses, cool forest spaces, on the beach where I really want a sense of depth to the landscape. Also, a focal length like this is really nifty if you're shooting in interior spaces, like when I do shoots in bedrooms, hotel rooms, stairwells, or anything that doesn't allow me to get far enough away from the model to be working at a focal length that's as zoomed in as 70 or above. This is actually my most recently purchased lens, because when I upgraded from my smaller sensor to the full frame, my old 35mm was a DX lens, and Nikon DX lenses are only designed to cater for DX sensors. So the image circle that the lens was producing was too small for the sensor, and I was getting like a really severe vignette around the outside of my images. So I bought this, which is the full frame equivalent, and it's been absolutely fantastic. It's very light, very fast, and yeah, it works very well. I think the next thing I'll be wanting to get is a 50mm 1.4, because typically most photographers starting out start their collection with a 50mm. They're called nifty 50s for that reason, and they're quite cheap, but it just didn't work out that way, so I think that's the only thing I really need to add. So that's a little bit about me and the equipment I'm using. Hope you enjoyed my first little video, getting to know me a little bit, and hopefully there'll be plenty more to come. Please don't forget to like and subscribe down below so that I have the I get the ball rolling a little bit on the channel and allow it to open up so that there's a bit more of a demand for more content. Follow me on Instagram at Jake_OD, because that's where I'm releasing most of my work. I'll also link my website in the description down below so that you can scroll and have a look at some older stuff and a little bit more about me. But thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.